Life is basically one big story, right? And it's a story that is dictated by a lot of different factors and a lot of different things. But I think when you actually start looking at life as a story, um, you can start writing it yourself, and you can have more influence in how that story will unfold, how beautiful that story will be, and how the main character in your story it becomes the hero, or creates his good endings, and it's creates a beautiful story basically. And what starts happening when you start writing about your life and your ideas and the things that come up in your life, um, it actually starts looking like a story. And this story has chapters, which are the different phases in your life, or different months, or different achievements, or different hard times, or illnesses, or whatever. It's all part of your story, right? The good and the bad. And a story wouldn't be exciting without the bad things, right? Have you ever watched a movie where everything just goes right and everything's perfect and there's no problems or no bad guys or no people that have to overcome stuff, right? That's the whole story. So when we start viewing our lives in these chapters and these stories, you start having more influence, and you can look back at what happened in the previous chapter in your story, in your life. Um, you can find a way to get out of these things and improve these things. And the way of doing this is changing the beliefs you have about your own story. So the things that have happened to you in your past, you can choose how you view those. And there's still going to be bad things, like bad things that happen to you, but it's up to you how you choose to look back at those things and what you want to get out of those things. And do you just want to be the victim in the story, or do you want to be the person in the story that overcomes these bad things, learns from them, and takes these things in the rest of their story to improve it basically? And that's what I think this concept is about. It's about the chapters in your life. And that doesn't mean that 1 month is a chapter or 1 year is a chapter. No, chapters happen all the time. Every day can be a chapter. A different relationship you have with somebody can be a chapter. A different illness you get can be a chapter. But it's important to write these chapters, to accept these chapters, and to overcome the bad things and make sure that your story has a good ending, right? And because we have that much influence in our story, we also have a big responsibility for ourselves. Because do you want to look back at your life on your deathbed and look back at your story and read your chapters, because that's what you're going to do when you can't walk or go out anymore. You're just going to review your life, I think. Do you want to have a good story to look back at, or do you want to have a boring story to look back at? Do you want to be the superhero in your own story or not? And this is all a decision. And the earlier that we see this decision, the more we can handle towards... Oh, there. Bye-bye. Sorry, my phone just fell over. But what I was saying, the earlier that we can see that it's a story and we have ownership of that story, the earlier we can start to change things and make the whole story better, which is what I think we're here to do, create a best story. Now, what I think people will feel when they hear this is that, holy shit, I don't want to take that responsibility over my own story, over my own life, because it's too big of a burden to accept the fact that these bad things are part of the story. People want to ignore them. People don't want to take them into account in their reality that they're really happening. But they do happen, and you do have ownership of them. You're not going to dictate everything that happens to you or for you, right? The belief. But you do have a choice in how you look at these things and how you decide to, what meaning you decide to give these things and these bad things that happen to you. And in doing this, it gets easier and easier and easier to take ownership of that story, to write your own story, and just create the best version of reality for yourself. And that's the main thing for me at this point in my in this chapter in my life is realizing that I create my own story. And so far this is really changing my worldview up big time, but I am loving it. It does really give me a sense of ownership, and the bad things that happened to me in my life, which I used to call bad things, are now just lessons, are now just opportunities to grow, are now just opportunities to improve myself, improve my relationships, improve my health, and improve life in general. So here's an invitation to start looking at your own life as a story. And how has it been going so far? Has it been a good story? Has it been a bad story? Can I start being the superhero in my own story? And yeah, take a look at it and see what little things you can change. And by changing these little things, you start changing the bigger things, and you start to get more ownership and more control over your own story. And that's the goal here. So you got this.